Hello my friends, in today's video we will take a look at Moza AirCross 3. AirCross 3 is the latest iteration in Moza's midsize gimbal series. It is intended for creators who want more compact gimbal but still need something with sufficient payload and good reliability. AirCross 3 is a pretty significant departure from the AirCross 2 and it brings some new features such as the foldable design. In this video we will take a look at the performance of the AirCross 3 to find out whether you should consider getting one. As a midsize gimbal, AirCross 3 is basically supposed to be a good compromise between the size and the performance. AirCross 3 weighs 1.5 kg and the maximal payload is 3.2 kg. That means that it is closer to the full-size gimbals. It can still fit on A4 size paper in folded state, which means that it is still very compact. I have tested it with various setups including A7R4 and Sigma 24-70mm f2.8 and it worked with no issues at all. The build quality is very good, the whole construction is metal. There are no plastic parts except the buttons. It feels super solid and the materials are very high quality. It meets the highest build quality standards, so I can say that it feels like a premium product. As I mentioned, this is a foldable gimbal. The first benefit of that is that it is definitely easier to transport in the folded state. The second benefit is more convenient use in the sling mode. You can also use it in this dual handle configuration. It is also much more stable if you use it with the slide pod, but I will get to that later. The balancing process is very easy. All of the arms are very smooth, so they won't get stuck. The balancing process is basically the same as with any other modern gimbal, so I haven't encountered any issues. Of course, it has locks on all three axes. Those are standard nowadays and they are useful for both balancing and the transportation. Only the pen axis has unlimited motion range, roll and tilt axes are not free, but it doesn't really matter in practical use. One of very few complaints that I have with the AirCross 3 is that the roll motor is positioned a little bit higher and it may obstruct the display a bit more in standard configuration, especially if you tilt the gimbal forward. AirCross 3 has a reliable auto adjust function that will shake all of the axes to figure out the best motor settings. That works very well. AirCross 3 uses a Kriegerly system with Manfrotto PL501 style plates. I prefer using Arca plates with mirrorless cameras, so I have added a SmallRig DBC2506 Arca mount. Regarding the stabilization performance, as I have mentioned, AirCross 3 has moved closer to the full-size gimbals in terms of the weight, and the performance is also very close to full-size gimbals. That means that the performance is excellent. This time I have tested it mainly with A7R4 because I wanted to see how it works with a better version of Sony's IBIS, which will also be in A7 IV. I can say that it works great in combination with A7R4 and my favorite gimbal lens, which is Sony FE20mm f1.8G. This combination only weighs about 1 kg, so it is not an issue for the AirCross 3. It is super easy to get that flying camera effect with this combination. The motors are strong and responsive, much like with any Moza gimbal. The response around 0 degrees angle is pretty linear, although a separate dead zone settings would be useful. AirCross 3 is sufficiently heavy, which also helps stabilize the whole setup. That is very important for walking, and it is the main reason why heavier gimbals always provide better walking footage. AirCross 3 is ideal for cameras such as Sony A7 series, EOS R6 and so on. It still works very well with f2.8 standard zooms, so that is not an issue at all. A big change with the AirCross 3 are the parameter settings. Now you can change the follow speed in 5 steps by short pressing the power button. The display and the user interface is very small and not very modern. It probably had to be sacrificed because of the folding design. On the positive side, it will still show you all the information that you need to know and you don't need to go deep into the main menu too often. I do miss the full settings, but this 5-step system will probably be easier for less experienced gimbal operators. Buttons and controls were also significantly simplified. There is the on-off button on the left side, which can also be used for changing the follow speed. On the front side, we have a joystick, mode button and recording button. There is a trigger on the back side and that's it. I also like the grip on AirCross 3. It is sufficiently long and it has a grippy rubberized surface. As I mentioned, the included tripod/grip extension is also very good. Unlike on the Air 2S and AirCross 2, where you can lock and unlock individual axes, AirCross 3 offers the usual follow modes. There is the pan follow, where the gimbal follows your movement in horizontal axis. Pan and tilt follow mode follows your horizontal movements and the tilting of the gimbal. All lock mode will just keep the camera pointed in one direction. It can be activated by holding down the trigger button. In FPV or POV mode, it follows all axes, so panning, tilting and rolling. You can enter the selfie mode by triple pressing the trigger button, and you can reset the gimbal position by double pressing it. There is also an inception mode for the vertigo effect. If you want to shoot vertical video, you can slide the mount base of the gimbal and slide it onto the vertical arm next to the tilt motor. That is probably the best way to shoot vertical video on a gimbal that I've seen so far. It is also possible to connect the camera to the gimbal using included cables. As you may know from my other gimbal reviews, if you use Sony, remote control will disable in-body image stabilization if you use PC remote USB setting. You can use a mass storage setting and micro USB multi-cable with Sony cameras, and that way you can have in-body image stabilization and functioning video recording button on the gimbal. The smartphone app is generally very good. I have tested it with iPhone 13 Pro and the functionality and the reliability was flawless. The follow speed, motor setting and other motor parameters are consistent with the gimbal display, so we can choose out of 5 options. There is a remote control as well, which is a pretty standard feature. It also has a user-friendly interface for setting motion lapses. Everything works through Bluetooth, so you don't have to use Wi-Fi. What I like a lot is that there are 3/4-inch mounts on this gimbal. The first one is obviously on the bottom side. The second mount is underneath the pan motor, and the last one is at 45-degree angle with the handle. AirCross 3 also has cold shoes on both sides. That is a great idea because it is ideal for mounting a microphone. It can also be very useful for mounting a monitor using a magic arm. Unlike the AirCross 3, this one has an integrated battery. I generally approve of that because it also means that you can charge the gimbal using the USB-C port on the right side. The battery life is rated for 20 hours, which is great, and it means that you won't need to charge the batteries during the shoots. An advantage of new Moza gimbals is that they can work together with the Slipod or Slipod Pro to achieve some pretty amazing moving shots. AirCross 3 is by far the most suitable gimbal for that because it can be mounted to the Slipod in folded position, which lowers the center of the gravity, and it makes the whole setup much more stable. To sum up, I think that the Moza AirCross 3 is a very solid upper mid-size gimbal. Most importantly, it performs really well. As I've explained, the performance is very close to the full-size gimbals. It is definitely one of the best performing gimbals in the class. The biggest change is the simplification of the controls. I would say that it is a neutral change. I like the older, more advanced controls on the Air 2S a lot, but these are simpler and faster. Folding design is definitely beneficial for portability and specific use cases such as the underslung mode. The build quality is flawless and the battery life is great. The negatives are that the roll motor obstructs the screen a little bit more and the display and the user interface are not great for changing more advanced settings. Other than that, I don't really have any other complaints. It is a very good gimbal suitable for all modern DSLM and DSLR cameras, so I can recommend it. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you have found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content.